What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Man Get Modified Fabrication and Off-Road. Today we're back and we're finally talking Hemi stuff. Alright, so I wanted to give everybody an update on what's going on with the Hemi. I know this is a budget Hemi Swap build, and we're quickly going over budget with what we have going on. We've had a few, I'd say, unfortunate things happen that are starting to bump up the amount that we have into this swap. One of the big things was the computer for the 6.4. We initially were going to go with a 2012 Dodge Challenger computer, and I had found one for super cheap on Marketplace. It was like 120 bucks. You're kind of taking a gamble when you're buying something like that, but I figure for that price I'm okay with it. The other option was to go with another used one off of eBay, which was anywhere from like $300 to $500. And for the wiring harness that we're going with, which is from Hotwire Auto, it requires either a 2012 Dodge Challenger computer or a 2012 Grand Cherokee WK2 SRT computer. And both those computers have to be for a 5.7 or a 6.4. Obviously, you can't use a 3.6 computer for that. That makes sense. Anyway, so we ran into an issue because we're all set and ready to go get this $120 computer from a guy, and right when we went to leave, just like normal, the guy backs out. Alright, no big deal. Well, we decided that a new computer was going to be roughly $600-ish, I want to say. It may have been just a little bit more than that. I can go back and look. And we decided we're just going to go with a brand new one through the dealership. My good friend has a hookup with the dealerships. Shout out to Cody Allen at Michigan Off-Road Designs. I appreciate you. He was able to pick us one up and get it to us in just a few days. But we are still waiting on that wiring harness from Hotwire Auto, so we're still not quite there yet. But that's okay. Computer's out of the way. We're good to go on that. Now, when we first brought the 6.4 Hemi home, I had noticed that there was a little bit of oil that was coming out of the throttle body, which I thought was kind of strange, and I was unsure why that was like that. I thought maybe the car had been in an accident, it was on its side, it was upside down, something like that, so some oil had run into the intake manifold. So, this engine was also used, so it's kind of a good idea to just tear it apart a little bit and see what's going on. So I decided that we were going to pull the heads off of it. I wanted to do head gaskets on it while we were at it. Head gaskets. We got new head bolts. Basically all the gaskets just to pull the heads off so we could see the inside and see the cylinders and make sure that everything was good. When I pulled the valve covers, I realized there was a little bit of oil sitting on top of, a little more oil than there should have been inside there, and I was slightly concerned about that, but I was kind of like, let's run it and let's see. So we decided we were going to pull the heads all the way off. Got the heads pulled off, and when I got the heads pulled off, there was a little bit of metal shavings in there, and I was kind of trying to make it seem like it wasn't that big of a deal. I was hoping that it was just part of the like aluminized gasket for the header that was kind of coming off inside there. It still could have been, I don't know, it's hard to say. But anyway, we decided to pull the heads and all the pistons looked pretty decent. However, there was one piston that had a little bit of weird, I wouldn't say wear on it. It was just clean around the edges in a very strange pattern. The rest of the pistons all had pretty uniform carbon buildup on them, but that one didn't. And that was a little bit weird to us, and we were like, not really sure why it's like that. It should have been a dead giveaway. But anyway, we decided to keep tearing it apart just to make sure. So we got to the point where we were pulling the oil pan, because when you do this swap, you got to swap the car oil pan to a truck oil pan. So if you can kind of see it sitting right there, the truck oil pan's on it, the engine's upside down right now. Anyway, we pulled the car oil pan off, and the car oil pan had a bit of metal in the bottom. Now, at this point, I'm concerned, but I'm still trying to play it off like, okay, maybe everything's okay, maybe we're still just going to get lucky. The casting on the oil pan was like scaly almost, and you could almost rub it and little pieces of metal would come off. So I'm like, okay, maybe that's all it is. We decided we were going to cut apart the oil filter and see if there was any metal shavings inside the oil filter. We cut it apart, and it wasn't horrible. There was a little bit of metal in it, but nothing real crazy. So we kind of all decided, well, I'm not really sure what's going on, but maybe we will just try to put it back together and run it and see what happens. Luckily, we stopped right there, and we got another opinion, and that's a huge thing to do, especially when you're working on this kind of stuff. You kind of get tunnel vision, and you're like so ready for it to be done that you kind of dismiss things that you typically shouldn't dismiss. So we got another opinion from a good friend of mine, Steve Shans, and he took a look at it, and he's like, no, dude, there's no way. Something is not right with this engine. So he started tearing apart the oil filter, and he found a little bit more metal. And we decided that we were going to pull the oil pan back off, and we'll just go ahead and pull a rod bearing, and let's just see what it looks like. So unfortunately, this is what we found. So let me get this cover off. So all the caps on the rods look pretty decent. It's not too bad. However, there was one that had some very strange coloring to it, and that's what I should have realized this sooner. One of the caps was actually this one, was blued, which is a huge sign that this had had a lot of heat into it. So if you look here, it's very hard to see, but our crank has some wear on it. The crank bearings ended up spinning, and I'll show them to you. One was actually on top of the other, which really sucks. Bring you guys over here. Let me show you this too. Here's the oil. This is the oil pickup. Yeah, so that doesn't look too wonderful. But right here, these are the crank bearings, or I'm sorry, the rod bearings. They were actually on top of each other like this when we found them. Broken, everything. I mean, they've been sitting on the bench now for a couple weeks, and they have started getting some more metal stuck to them. But anyway, nonetheless, we're gonna have to do something about this crank. So I'm hoping that we may be able to get lucky and clean this up. You really can't feel it. You definitely can see it. It's not perfect. Worst case scenario, we go ahead and we just have this machined and we get a larger bearing. We go that route, and some of you may say that's the only thing that you can do, but we're really going to give it a try and see if we can't buff that out and get it looking pretty decent. This Jeep is more than likely not going to be a daily driver once the 6.4 is done in it. So I'm not like super concerned. It's not going to get a ton of miles on it. It will be driven, but it won't be driven daily. So here, you guys can tell this shows really well. So we got some material buildup right here. Right there is kind of what your crank should look like. I wish you could feel it, because this is like perfectly smooth and this is slightly rough. So these rod bearings are also toast. Wonderful. Drop that down in the oil pan. That's sweet. And I'm not talking the oil pan on the engine. I'm talking that oil pan. So that's awesome. Anyway, so you can see here, this bearing shot. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead. We're going to pull the crank out. Obviously, we're going to pull all the rods off of it. We're going to do all new rod bearings. We're probably going to do main bearings too. At least inspect them, take a look at them. The cool thing was, though, the cam is perfect. And the lifters seem perfect. So we're going to kind of run those, I think. But this is definitely going to be some work, and it needs some love. So it's a really unfortunate thing that we found. But, I mean, that's what you do. When you get an engine from a junkyard or Facebook Marketplace or something like that, it's always best to tear it apart like this. I wasn't expecting to do a full rebuild on it, which I guess it's still not going to be considered a full rebuild, but it's going to be more of a rebuild than I originally had anticipated. But it's always good, like, pull the heads, take a look, see the pistons. You know, if you got to pull a rod, see what it looks like. Check the bearings out, take a good look, and make sure that everything's good in there, because if we wouldn't have done that and we would have just sent it, I mean, first startup would have just been horrible. It would have knocked so bad, we would have thought the whole engine was completely ruined, and we'd be taking twice as much time to tear it apart and redo it the correct way. So sometimes it's beneficial to like slow down a little bit, take the time, and make sure that everything's good to go. So we've got some parts on the way. We're going to replace one of the rods because I'm fairly confident that the rod that spun the bearing is going to be oval shape on the inside now, just from it hitting so hard. Oh, and the markings on top, you know, where I was talking about the carbon buildup, yeah, that was the piston actually hitting the head, so that's really sweet. So, and Mopar only sells a rod, piston ring, skirt, like, assembly. I believe it comes with the rod bearing as well. So that's probably the route that we're going to go, and it's not a crazy expensive part. It's like $260, and only one of them was bad. So I think that's the route we're going to go. Get one of those setups, slap that inside there. We'll check out the rest of the bearings, so we're going to tear this down the rest of the way. Originally, I was not going to videotape the engine teardown because I was like, oh, we're not going to find anything. I'm just going to tear it down and slap it back together. Who actually wants to see that? Well, I'm really happy that we did see that, but I kind of wish I would have brought you guys along with me. So when we tear it down the rest of the way, I'll make sure to kind of show the process of what we're going to do and how we're going to go about it. And I'm going to show you guys what our plan is on trying to get the crank cleaned up. Now, Trev's Jeep, the other JK with the 5.7 in it, this one right there, the rod wasn't, or I'm sorry, the crank was not in as bad of shape as that, but it wasn't in good shape either. And he was able to get that cleaned up the best that he could, and that engine doesn't make any noise at all. It wasn't machined, nothing. So we're going to try it. I mean, worst case scenario, we end up getting another crank, and I guess if anybody that sees this video has a 6.4 crank laying around that they don't need, or rods or anything like that, let me know. That would be awesome. That would really help us out and kind of keep us on budget, because we're quickly approaching that way over budget stage, and that's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to do it as cheap as possible. Now, we will make a little bit of money back when we sell like the trans and we sell the engine. However, the engine is blown, but hey, somebody might need something off it and might be interested in buying it for, you know, a couple $100 or something. I guess we'll see when the time comes. I also want to tear into that engine and just see where it failed, see what the issue is with it, because it sounded horrible when it happened, and I really would like to see the inside of that engine and see how bad it is. So when the time comes, I'll take you guys on that engine teardown. I know I messed up. I should have brought you on the 6.4 engine teardown, but it is what it is, and it's done. And I'm sorry. I know the shop is an absolute disaster right now. We have way too many things going on. This weekend is a wheeling weekend, so we are getting the dub ready, getting that JK ready. We're going out for a day trip tomorrow to a place in Harrison called Rocks and Valleys. So if anybody is from Michigan and wants to come up to Rocks and Valleys and come see us, say hi, that would be awesome. Say what's up. Come see the dub. Come see Trev's Jeep. You know, that would be cool as heck. But yeah, so we've had a lot of things going on around here, and I'm hoping things are going to slow down a bit so we can really focus our time back on the 6.4 and get this engine swap done, because I know my uncle's dying to drive this thing, and I'm honestly ready to get this thing rolling and see what can happen with it. See what kind of power it builds, see what it's like. I think he's going to be extremely stoked to have this thing out, because a 6'4" Hemi in one of these things absolutely rips. I'm not saying a 5'7" doesn't, because Trev's rips too, but the 6'4", man, she gets it. But that's really all I got. I just wanted to give you guys an update. I know it's been a little while, and I wish I would have had more actual content of showing you what's going on and less of me just talking. But it is what it is, and I wanted to give you guys just a little bit of something to see. As always, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. So I want to give Crawler Off-Road an absolute huge shout out. This past weekend was an event in Michigan called Jeep Blessing, and they were gracious enough to reach out to me and ask me if I would park the Dub in their booth. I thought that was absolutely amazing. So many people stopped to talk to me and see it, and just it brought so much attention to the things that they were selling. And I just want to say thank you, and I want to show you guys some of the awesome things that Crawler brings to the table. So Crawler reached out to me, and they hooked me up with this super sweet Hemi orange synthetic rope for the old Smitty built. I'm running all Crawler gear right here. Crawler Off-Road Fairlead, the winch line, a couple of my soft shackles are from Crawler as well. They make a really top-notch, awesome product. I mean, this thing is so nice. The color is great. It got nice and muddy this weekend, and we just kind of sprayed it off, and she looks beautiful. Crawler Off-Road makes a number of different products, from winch lines to Fairleads, soft shackles. They even make an awesome tool roll that I just got my hands on last weekend. We ended up buying a few of them, actually, for me and the boys. It's a really cool setup if you've never seen a tool roll before, and the difference between this one and the one that, like, I got a couple from, like, Amazon, this one's quite a bit bigger, and you can fit some of the bigger tools in it. And I think that's awesome, because I don't know about you guys, but when I'm out wheeling, I really like to be able to have, like, a lot of the things that I need, and it sucks when something happens and you don't have everything you need. So I'll kind of show you guys this thing. This thing's pretty sweet. So here she is, and again, you know I love the color. Got the Hemi orange on there. Open it up for you guys. So there you go. You can tell it's pretty decent size. Here's I'll show you guys some of the stuff I got in there. So here's some of the screwdrivers that fit in there. I mean, like, full-size screwdrivers fit in there nice. We've got wrenches, all those things, they fit in there perfect. I mean, this thing is super sweet. So if you guys are interested in anything that Crawler Off-Road sells, go to their website, crawleroffroad.com, check them out, and if you use my code 64WJ at checkout, you get 10% off. Take that off. Oh, look, no trans fluid came out.